Welcome back to the Fanspeak Network, another episode of Sibling Showdown, our strategy edition. We're doing a rookie series. We're covering rookies and how that can apply to big board best ball drafts. And today, we've already covered quarterbacks and tight ends. Today, we are covering running backs in just 1 minute. That's right. It's a rookie series that we can use in big board best ball drafts. We're so excited. The best ball is back. The big board is back. I'm with my brother, Steve, who, of course, took down $50K in fourth place in last year's big board, looking to run it back. Right, Steve? And you're excited to talk about these rookies. Steve has done a lot of scouting over the last decade plus, used to be down at the Senior Bowl scouting. And so he definitely has his finger on the pulse of rookies and kind of ranking them. And that's why we're going to take that knowledge and apply it to best ball and the big board draft specifically, obviously. So we talked quarterback and tight end. Check out that show on Fanspeak Network and subscribe to Fanspeak Network if you haven't already. Be sure to like this episode as well. But we talked quarterback and tight ends. Now it's time to talk running back, Steve. So Steve, I'll give you the floor. Give me kind of like the broad stroke of how extremely exciting this running back class is.
Yeah, this class is definitely the deepest running back class we've had in a number of years, at least 2020, and I think even more to like 2017. We have elite talent at the top. We have depth throughout like the second and third rounds of the NFL draft, even some guys who could go in round 4, just how deep this class is that, in the right spot could get a role. You have a nice mix of some pass catching backs, but a lot of touchdown hunters, a lot of big physical backs who, again, right role, right situation. Some guys we know will be day one starters. Other guys, we'll have to see, but either way, these are guys who can score fantasy points, and that's something we haven't had much of at the running back position the last couple of years. Last year was very weak, from a high end and a depth standpoint.
Bucky Irving was really the only rookie that made an impact, right?
Running back? I mean, you had a couple others like Tyron Tracy, a couple others, but yeah, not much out there.
Yeah,
and even the year before with the two studs at the top, Bijan and Gibbs, didn't have much beyond that. This class has depth. It's more than just.
So you got the top end like Bijan and Gibbs, but then you've got the depth too.
Yeah.
So you can't predict this. There's no way that you can know this with landing spots and injuries and health and all that stuff. But how many, best case scenario, how many of these rookie running backs, because again, you're saying this class is super strong, both at the top and depth. How many of these rookie running backs could make like a Bucky Irving type impact, like whether a strong role on their team from the jump, like they were drafted to be the number one, or kind of like in Bucky Irving's case, he was, kind of the number 2 and worked his way to the number 1. How many realistically best case scenario could have that that type of impact year one in in best ball?
So the good news is because so much does typically rely on landing spot, but when we have so much depth out there, even if a running back who is more lower down gets the right landing spot, we have a chance to really spike this number. I mean, low end, I'd say 4 or 5, high end, I'd say up to 10.
Yeah.
That's what's different.
That's what I was basically looking for, is we could have up to 10 that are making massive impacts their rookie year.
That's what's different from years past. And then even you have some guys who can be like, Tyron Tracy, a few other, secondary rookies in recent years. And it's just, but Bucky Irving's a great example. Part of his success, of course, is going to such great offense.
Sure.
We could have a guy in the not in the top 7 or 8 that we talk about, but if they go to, say, the Chiefs offense, who could be looking running back, or the Chargers offense, who could be looking running back, those could be just packaged for, fantasy success from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. And again, so much, we're doing this pre-draft and we're going to do a post-draft too. And so much will depend on that landing spot. But we're in the big board drafts. Nobody knows landing spots. So we're just going to play it that way and draft based on obviously talent and your rankings. And so I'm going to pull those rankings over now, Steve, and we're going to go basically one by one through these guys, all of your rookie running back rankings here. And of course, we're going to spend more time at the top and less time at the bottom, but you can kind of give us context about how much you're drafting them in the big board drafts. And of course, we start number 1 with Ashton Jeanty of Boise State. Tell us a little about him. And he's going early, but I assume you're taking a good chunk.
Oh yeah. I mean, Jeanty's just simply put, he's special. Right now he's going like in the second round of drafts, and he's worth it because he's pretty much landing spot agnostic. Doesn't matter where he's going to go, he's going to be the star. And he's just so explosive. Even if it's a terrible offense, I think he finds a way. And he is a guy where if you look back over the last 5-10 years, there's maybe you put Bijan above him, maybe you put Saquon above him, but beyond that, Jeanty is, would match any prospect. So, Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago, first round rookie for Lions, obviously an incredible fantasy guy. I think, if him and Jeanty are in the same class, you are looking long and hard of who you're taking, and Jeanty very well could be edging him out. So that's kind of upside we're talking about here. He's incredibly explosive. He's smaller side. We'll see. He's probably like 5'9", but 100 pounds, but it's all muscle. It's tough, physical, does not go down on first contact. Ran for 2,500 yards, whatever it was this year, just absolutely insane numbers at Boise. And the thing is, he could have run for another 500 more. He sat almost every fourth quarter. And because he ran so much, they didn't throw to him as much this year, but the year before he had over like 500 yards receiving. We know the ball. He is a do everything type back.
Okay, so that's what I was just going to ask. Is he kind of like a Gibbs Bijan where, you can get him involved in the passing game? Okay, good. That's
a comp that you hear out there, and it's very appropriate, but he might even be a little bit more explosive, is Alvin Kamara. He can just do it all, and just makes explosive plays after explosive play and doesn't go down on first contact, stuff like that. And because he's going to be a first rounder, and would not surprise me if like a team like the Cowboys at 12 and some teams in these teens.
I was going to say, could he go top 10, top 15?
Yeah. I mean, look, some high end, Daniel Jeremiah, I think, had him as his 5th rated prospect because he's just looking at pure talent. Yeah. And, you could see a team in a class like this, who just says, you know what, we just want the most talented guy.
Who would be the most fun landing spot? The Bears with Ben Johnson?
I think the Bears with Ben Johnson. We just saw what he did with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, that's why I said that. Yeah.
We just know he likes to run the football, does a very good job at that. Yeah. And would be the nice piece for Caleb to help balance that offense.
Sure. So if you ranked top, of course, we're spending the most time top, we'll go through these quicker. If you ranked top prospects of like the last, 10 years, would you put Jeanty like maybe 3 just behind, like you said, just behind like Barkley and Bijan, basically?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I assume Jeanty's going in that like right at the kind of 1-2 turn, like early second round. How much are you taking of him?
I'm taking them. I mean, there's a lot of guys I like there, obviously. Receivers, some other running backs like Derrick Henry's right in that range. Jonathan Taylor. So, but yeah, I'm taking him pretty much any time that he's right there at value. Any early second round pick, whether I've already taken a running back or whether I'm looking for my first running back, he is right in the mix with anyone. So I want to be overweight on him for sure. Okay. That's
basically what I'm trying to get is to take action items. What is Steve doing in regards to these rookies in these best ball big board drafts? Okay. Let's go to number 2 on your rankings, Omarion Hampton, UNC. You say how in the article, he's a complete running back, runs with power, speed, vision, excellent footwork. Sounds like he's do everything 3 down back that also could be used in the passing game, but be obviously a workhorse running back for a team as well. Do you see him going round 1 and any other, kind of follow up to Hampton?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's got really good size, probably 6 foot, 6'1", 220-ish, 215, 220-ish. But it looks very explosive, has great speed. really had to do it all. UNC, especially this past year when Drake May left, they
Yeah.
did not have a quarterback. Their first quarterback got injured. I think another quarterback got injured. They were just a mess and haven't had a strong offensive line. So he's really done a lot without a good offensive line, without a quarterback this past year. He still had 1,600 yards. Just fantastic back. This guy, would have, I think, easily been RB1 last year, and even a couple of years ago, the Brees Hall Kenneth Walker year, I think he's RB1, no question.
Wow, that's interesting. So he's going, and I need to pull up the underdog rankings, but he's going in around the 40s range, Steve?
Yeah, late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah. So how much are you taking there? You said you're going to be overweight Genty. Are you going to be overweight on Hampton?
Yeah, I think I am going to be as well. I think we're talking about another back who pretty much whoever's drafting him, because it could be end of round 1, early round 2. I think he's just fallen into a starting landing spot, probably won't have a ton of competition. And since he's a 3-down back, he's going to catch the football. He should be used heavily around the goal line because he's physical enough and definitely did that in college. So yeah, I have no problem being overweight on him. I put this in the article, even as a rookie, I think he's going as RB 17, 18 right now.
Yeah, and I was wrong. His ADP is 59. I have the ADPs.
Yeah, I thought it was more in the 50s, but yeah, he's like RB 18 right now.
Yeah,
I think last I saw, and yeah, I mean, this guy can be a top 10 running back. I mean, landing spot will help, of course, but absolutely can be a top 10 running back.
And you do think he could pop into the end? You wouldn't be shocked if he popped into the end of the first round.
Yeah. No, because there's not that many playoff teams that need a running back. You
could also see a team trade into it.
A team could trade into it. Washington being one, Kansas City definitely could be one. So there are not that many other playoff teams that I'd point to. But yeah, if a team maybe trades into it once that 5th year on a cheaper rookie deal instead of paying for free agency, I could see that making sense.
Okay. Caleb Johnson from Iowa is your 3rd ranked running back. You said he's a big physical running back. You said he's got some Derrick Henry's game. I hear that. Sign me up. I love Big Dog. Is he as explosive as Big Dog? Is he like the freight train just running at full speed and you want to get out of his way type running back?
Yeah. A running back from Iowa had a tremendous year this year. Was kind of banged up the year before, but he is one of the more physical, toughest runners. I do see some Henry to his game. Obviously, that's the extreme end, but yeah, he does not go down easy on first contact. He uses all his tools, keeps his legs turning, has a great stiff arm. He has good open field vision. Also, you'll see him. He's not afraid of contact, but he does a great job of making guys miss in the open field. So he's not taking extra contact, getting into that 3rd level. And some corner or safety trying to bring him down. It's not going to be easy. It's not easy at the college level. And he's probably like 6'2", 225. Obviously that's kind of where the Derrick Henry type comp comes in. And I see his one kind of downside is he's never been highly involved in a passing game.
Similar to Henry,
might be a guy who is like a 60%, 65% running back. But I do think the touchdowns will be there. So that's obviously
especially now we're talking about underdog big board drafts. We're touchdown hunting. So you are definitely taking. I have only been able to get him once or twice. I want to get him more. He's ADP of 65. So right after Hampton. So I assume you're trying to get a good bit and be able to overweight him as well.
Yeah, I at least want to be with the field. Landing spot's going to matter a little bit more to him to see just how big of a role he's going to get.
Right.
And you do want him to go to a team with a strong offensive line. And hopefully he goes to a team that has a very run focused approach. Wouldn't be surprised, just throwing this out there, because he has some Marshawn Lynch to his game. So maybe Pete Carroll in the 2nd round takes a shot on him.
Oh, that would be because they certainly need a running back. So that would be fun. That would be a really fun one. Like that comp. Okay. So far through 3, Genty, Hampton, Johnson, Steve wants to get a lot of them. I'm definitely just whatever Steve says I'm doing. I've learned to follow his takes on rookies. So let's go to the next 2 and kind of lump them together. They're the 2 Ohio State backs, Quinshon Judkins and then Trevion Henderson, both the Ohio State backs. Talk about both of them, how you're handling them kind of together. And I'll just say before, they're also very close in ADP. Henderson 68.1, Junkins 76.1 ADP.
Yeah.
So give me a quick breakdown and then how you're handling both of them in big board drafts.
Yeah, so, and we saw this a little at Ohio State. Junkins was a Mississippi transfer, so previous years were at Mississippi. So I'll get to that in a second. But honestly, this is a thunder and lightning type approach. Junkins is the more physical back. He has some explosiveness in his own right, but he's more physical between the tackles back, definitely going to have probably stronger red zone role. Henderson is, again, let me give Junkins credit. He's good receiving the ball as well, but Henderson is the way more explosive guy. I'll be very interested to see what he runs at the combine. I could see a pretty good number from him, but if he gets to the open field, he's gone. I mean, he's a home run hitter.
Which one had the massive college football finals game? Was it Henderson?
Junkins had the finals game. Henderson had the Texas game.
Oh, okay. So they alternated.
2 touchdowns in the Texas game.
Okay, I think I was the finals was what I remembered. The running back. Okay,
Junkins
that was
Junkins. 3 total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 receiving.
Okay, got it. Okay, sorry. Continue.
So, but that's the thing. They both offer enough where they both can be complete backs. I think Henderson is, in the Gibbs Monty comparison, he's probably fits best in that kind of role, like just a Gibbs type of role. But as we see with Gibbs, he's just got that explosiveness where, he might not get 25 carries, but at 12, 15 carries, he's running for 6, 8, 12, 15-yard clips at times that he's just racking up yards and then gets that home run ball. And then also very good in passing game. Junkins, it's interesting. He transferred into Ohio State, and I think mainly because he was splitting the role. Previously at Ole Miss, he was more the guy. Did some decent backups, but he was more the guy. And last year he had like 1,400 yards. This year he had considerably less. He didn't look as good, I think, trying to get his place on this team, but he was tremendous for them in the playoffs. He had like 6 total touchdowns in the playoffs.
Wow.
Multiple 2 of his 3 highest rushing games were in the playoffs. So came in where it mattered most in some of the tougher defenses they faced, like Notre Dame and Texas. So that's definitely good to see. I think both of these guys are major fantasy producers, starting running backs at the next level. Landing spot will matter, as it will for pretty much everyone, but I don't think there's any reason either one of these guys is less than like a 50% player.
Okay. And you mentioned in the article here that you have Junkins rate a little higher because, especially on Underdog, he could have that greater touchdown role. But like you said, Henderson's so explosive, so you like them both. Okay, so that's 4 and 5. Then we go to 6, and Steve has me taking an obscene amount of Cam Skattebo. I'm already through 9 drafts at, I believe, 53% Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. Steve's, told me about him early. Said this guy has great contact balance, is fun to watch, sends me clips, and I'm like, yeah, sign me up. Now I want Washington to draft him. I'm drafting him, seeing him out because he's going in the 120s on big board drafts. So tell me about Cam Skattebo, and you've got me drafting him a lot. Are you drafting him a lot?
I am. And, it's a thing where he's going, like you mentioned, he's going,
121 is his current ADP.
Yeah. So 50 spots behind, even that Henderson Junkins mix. And the interesting thing with Skattebo, he's good size, kind of like Caleb Johnson, similar size to that. And he's big, physical, powerful. Like, this guy will just run you over.
That's what the clips were, basically.
And yet he just doesn't go down on first contact. And it's not just like a 215 linebacker first contact. We're talking defensive tackles. We're talking, 260 defensive ends. They hit him and he bounces off of them. He just keeps going. I don't know. I don't think he's going to have that elite long speed, but he also would also help some is he's going to be a major red zone touchdown hunter. And on top of that, he might be the best receiving back in this class, especially of these like top end guys. He I'm trying to think off the top of my head. He had like 400 yards receiving, even more this year. Like just he had a ton of targets, and we're not just talking little dump offs, little screens. Like he goes out on routes.
Yeah.
So I think particularly like creative offensive play callers are just going to love him because he can fit into any kind of role they need.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's what you wrote in here. In last year's class, he would have been in a strong case for RB1. There's no true hole in his game, which allows him to fit with a number of different teams and a number of different roles, which I think
right.
makes him really interesting because he's not pigeonholed, and therefore, no matter his team, his landing spot should have a fantasy worthy role. And we're getting him at 121. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think when you combine that, like, sure, if he was going the same place Caleb Johnson is, I'm going to probably, take Caleb Johnson, but he's going twice, Caleb Johnson's in the 60s.
Yeah.
He's going 120. So,
Yeah. No, crazy. Do you have like an NFL comp for him?
I mean, there's definitely a little Derrick Henry to his game, but probably the best comp is James Conner. James Conner
Yeah.
catches the ball well, doesn't go down easy, just tough physical runner, just keeps it going. And we see he's been a fantasy stud, especially in fantasy playoffs the last 3-4 years. So
yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, you got me hooked. I went Washington and draft him, and I watched the highlights that you sent me, and he is fun to watch. So I really like this a lot. Maybe you're not saying draft 50+%. I'm only through 9 drafts right now. I've got a lot of slows going, but no, I assume you want to be way overweight. I'm going
to be well over the field because especially if he gets a good landing spot, and then more people just see how he's utilized and used. And I think people undersell what his draft capital is. Yes, he's very at least a third rounder, but he could be like he could go ahead of Junkins and Henderson. He could go ahead of Caleb Johnson if a team falls in love with his skill set.
So he definitely could be a second round. He's going to be most likely he's going to be a day 2 guy.
Yeah,
you could see him going as high as the second round.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so we're all in. Cam Scottaboo, we're going to be way over the field. That takes us to number 7 on Steve's rankings, Dylan Sampson, Tennessee. Tell me about him and where you stand on him.
Yeah, Sampson is another one of these just absolutely explosive guys. He doesn't shock anyone. Tennessee last year, Jalen Wright, 4th round pick for the Dolphins. Sampson's better than Wright, simply put. And just he's a more complete runner and has just as much, if not more, explosiveness, and that's Wright's calling card.
Yeah.
Sampson definitely has better vision, and I just think can be a more complete guy. Really had a breakout year with Wright being gone. Had a ton of touchdowns, helped lead Tennessee to the playoffs. He really carried the team because they had a young quarterback. So you like seeing that. You like seeing he definitely, as far as I know, very much a leader on the team. And I will say a number of these guys, Genty, Hampton, Scattaboo, for sure, clear-cut leaders on the team.
Yeah.
And honestly, probably all of them. I just haven't researched all of them enough, but like that side of it. But yeah, right. I think teams are going to fall in love with him. I mentioned here in the article, he's got, the Gibbs a chain type.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what he does. He's explosive. I don't think he's as elite of a receiver as Gibbs or a chain, but it's definitely in his wheelhouse.
So Sampson is going actually behind Neil, who we'll talk about next in your rankings. Sampson's going ADP of 158. So I assume that you look at that as a massive value.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think Sampson is Neil, again, these running backs can be the beholder for sure. But I think Sampson's just has a higher upside.
Okay.
And he'll probably get drafted over Neil, but there's a chance Neil's drafted higher. I mean, a lot of people are going to fall in love with Neil as well.
Yeah, and we'll get to him in a minute, like you said, in the draft process, different draft boards, it's eye of the beholder. So, again, at 158, you're definitely going to be overweight on Sampson as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then that takes us to number 8, Devin Neal, Kansas. Break him down and how you're handling him, his ADP. I just had it. It was kind of in between Scattaboo and Sampson. So Neal is 128 right now, right after Scattaboo. So how are you handling? Break him down and how you're handling him.
So the best way to compare to talk about Devin Neal and honestly the kind of the next couple guys, but Giddens especially, who's my next guy, um, is these guys would have they're 8 and 9, and they would have been in the mix for RB2 or 3 last year.
Yeah.
They would have been even in the strong class with Bijan and Gibbs 4 or 5. I mean that's so you're getting a clear discount is the way I see it on these types of guys. Neal, he's just fun to root for. He's 4-year starter at Kansas. That's next to impossible at the college level. Just went through tough times when Kansas was terrible, when they were good, when they had quarterback injuries. He just kept running the football, and he does it very, very well. One of the things you love this Colorado game late in the year. Colorado had a chance to be the Big 12 title contender, and Neal basically just shut the door on them. He had like 200 yards rushing, 80 yards receiving, 4 or 5 total touchdowns. He just absolutely dominated them.
Wow.
And they had nothing to play for. Kansas had nothing to play for, but he did, and you just saw it. Like so I mean, games like that you just love to see because he just doesn't stop fighting. He's not going to be the biggest, strongest, fastest, but he's like the first guy you want out there.
Nice.
So
Any NFL comp that you have for him?
Honestly, in some ways, kind of Bucky Irving.
Well, that worked this year.
Not entirely the same in terms of body build and all that, but just reminds me of the same sort of toughness. Like, Bucky Irving is not the fastest guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he's effective.
Yeah.
And Neal just reminds me of that, just that tenacity that he has.
Well, how are you handling with him going right after Scatterboo, but well ahead of of Sampson? How are you handling Devin Neal in drafts then?
So I'm still going to take him a decent chunk, mainly because I do think he's the type of guy, particularly if he gets the right kind of landing spot, he could do very well. And I think he could honestly, Sampson's no question, more explosive and probably going to be better overall in the passing game. But Neal might just end up with a better role if depending on the landing spot. So right now, again, since it's not a major investment, and the other thing I like with Neal is he's got a very high floor. Like at worst, he's going to be a number 2 back who gets some usage on teams. I mean, outside of the handful of and even Derrick Henry, Justice Hill was able to have a passing game role, but outside like the Saquon Barkleys, most number 2 backs have a role. Some fantasy value. So I think Neal is good in that regard and this is why I brought up of where he'd rank versus some recent rookie classes, because you could be a team, like who you think is already kind of set at running back, and he just comes in and at least is taking the number 2 spot, if not the number 1.
Right. Yeah. And, as we're doing these drafts, I'm trying to stay wary. And I mean, this is a conversation as we do big board drafts and that kind of stuff, but just something to consider as we're talking about these rookies and how many could hit. I know stars have to align, health has to align, but how many could hit is, some of these number 2 backs are making me nervous that I don't really want to overinvest because I don't know that they're going to have the role that they had last year, or even number 1 backs, like even like a Brian Robinson. If Washington invests, late first round, late second round, is Brian Robinson going to have that role? And then some of these guys are going to behind him. So, I don't know. Those are the kind of things cooking through my head that I'm either investing in like sure bets, these rookies, and then maybe some later shots that have upside, because of the a handcuff. But I'm a little more wary of some of the middle veterans, so to speak, of the running back position because of these rookies. Would you agree?
No, I agree. And, a perfect example would be, say, Tennessee Titans, obviously not taking a running back at first overall, but they might look to dip into this strong class later.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard, 1,000-yard back for them. He might not. Would he get unseated with some of the guys I mentioned earlier? Yeah, and that's probably why they'll wait. But they could look at the 4th round and take Neal or the next guy we're about to talk about, DJ Giddens, and I think they're better than Tajay Spears.
No, that's just something to consider too, because these rookies could push out other guys for jobs, and that's interesting. Again, it has to break rate, but that is something to consider. Okay, so number 9 is DJ Giddens, Kansas State, and then we'll start to pick up the pace as we go down here because we do need to get on a live show at 5. But DJ Giddens, Kansas State, how are you handling him, and break him down for us?
What's his current ADP? I looked at the other day, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check that as well. So he's way down there,
Yeah,
194.
that's what I thought.
He's behind some of these other guys
Yeah,
that are lower on
I'm
your
much
rankings.
I'm much higher on him. I thought that was still the case.
Yeah.
I think he probably not a third, maybe a third rounder, but probably more like a fourth rounder. But he's very similar to Neil, just very efficient, very effective, does all the things right. I think a lot of NFL teams, particularly coaching staffs, are going to fall in love with him. I think he unseats a lot of backup running backs in the NFL right now. One or two spots he could start if they don't get a guy earlier
Yeah.
or a free agent or something. But yeah, I think he catches the ball well, he runs well, so he can help in kind of any area. And yeah, I think right now he to me is very undervalued in best ball drafts. I'm not going to go crazy, I'm not going to be at like 25% on him or something, but where he's going, he's next to free.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he's definitely in my late round mix
So
because
okay, he's one of your favorite late round rookie
yeah,
targets for sure. Then,
yeah.
who was the one you mentioned to me the other day? Was it Neil or Giddens that you were like, oh, you should be taking more of him?
I said Neil. Yeah.
Okay, Neil, because yeah, I don't have much of them yet. I have a lot of the guys above them. I need more of this range too. Okay, so that takes us to our next one, number 10 on your list, Ollie Gordon of Oklahoma State. Break him down. He is going. Let me see where he's going. Definitely before, 158. So
Yeah.
this is
So 2 years ago, he was the best running back in the country. Didn't come out. Went back to school this past year, and it was just not the same. It wasn't good. Sure, Oklahoma State's quarterback situation, offensive line situation didn't do him any favors, but he just didn't look the same. But the talent's still in there. He's bigger. I do worry about how he'll be utilized in the passing game overall, but teams, if you look at the tape from 2 years ago, there's a lot to love.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to get a good shot. Now, what I would say is he's probably the most volatile of these prospects, regardless of where he ends up being in the NFL draft. If he's the guy who Oklahoma State had 2 years ago, this is an NFL starting running back. If he's the guy who was there last year, he's not seen the field.
Okay.
So he's extremely volatile in that case. So I'm not going to go overweight on him, but I don't want to miss the boat in case he is the guy that we saw 2 years ago.
Well, that makes sense. That's a good way to contextualize this because I'm kind of looking for action items. Okay, how much do I want in? How much do I want in? And then price matters too. And 158, so then you may take more of a guy like Giddens or Neil that are going later than him, but you still want to be with the field or get 6 to 8% of him in case he does go off, but you're protected in case he is a bust then too.
Yeah.
Does that kind of sum it up? Okay. We'll go through. We've got 11 through, I think you have about 20 plus. We're going to go through the rest rather quickly. But we've got the next one. I know you do like RJ Harvey from UCF. So speak about him. His ADP is 204. So really late, but I've seen people take him way above ADP. So
so I mean, Harvey is easily one of the most explosive guys, right up there with Henderson and Sampson, maybe even more explosive. Ridiculous numbers at UCF these past 2 years, 3,500 combined yards, 42 touchdowns, just massive ability to affect the game, and just huge chunk plays. Like think of what like Saquon and Gibbs are doing at the NFL level. That's what he's doing in college. I'm not saying he's got that because he's smaller. He's not the same, but there is some real juice, some real talent there. Some teams are going to really like to have him as like a satellite third down type back. Can he hold up at his size? He's smaller. So, I do want to see the combine numbers, both the workouts and even just the height, weight. But yeah, now, I mean, for a guy going late, I think he's also very experienced. He was at UCF a number of years. So I think he can play at the NFL right away. I don't think there's going to be a lot of big transition, especially if he's just coming in as a passing game, like let's make some big plays.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me, we saw that a little with Tyrone Tracy. So yeah, I mean, he is a guy I don't mind taking shots. The next guy, I'll just go into it. If you don't mind.
Tosh Brooks, Texas Tech.
Tosh Brooks, my number one sleeper. He's undrafted. I'm going to take a few 20-round shots on him just because he is undrafted. I compare him to Kyron Williams.
Wow.
He doesn't leave the field. He plays every snap. Got pretty good vision, footwork, but he just doesn't have that like elite speed, elite agility.
Not massively explosive, I
Yeah,
assume,
catches
because
the
that's
ball well, blocks. He's just a tough guy, and he's again the type of guy coaches are going to love. So
yeah.
I think he'll find a role in the NFL. I think he's been very criminally slept on in the draft community. I probably a fourth, fifth round guy, but just a guy who if the landing spot's perfect, it could hit, and so
Yeah.
that's why I will take a couple 20th round shots on. Next guy, I'll go
Yeah.
Damian Martinez, Miami, transferred from Morgan State. Kind of reminiscent to some of the backs we talked about earlier, the Cam Scadaboos, Caleb Johnson, big physical power back. Has almost no value in the passing game, so that could be something that holds him back, and is the reason why I have him this low.
Yeah.
If he had a little bit more, he would be a couple spots higher.
So
But
I assume not taking a ton of him based
I'm
on
not taking a ton, but I don't mind him entirely because some teams like he can run. He can be a very good runner, and he can be a red zone specialist. So
okay. Yeah. And as we go through the rest of these quickly, just basically say which ones you're really not taking at all and which ones you
yeah,
are going to take some of. Because again, now we're talking, 19th, 20th round guys, basically, right?
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So Kalel Mullins, Michigan.
yeah. Interesting story. Not really going to take him.
Okay.
He transferred from being a linebacker to a running back,
Oh,
but
wow.
will be a fun guy to watch in the future.
Okay. Jordan James, Oregon, 15.
Yeah, I'll take a few late round shots at him. He replaced Bucky Irving pretty nicely this year. Um, you know, I worry that he's just average and won't crack the starting lineup as a rookie, but he was productive at Oregon and that worked for Bucky. So I don't mind taking a shot or two.
Okay. Woody Marks is someone that started with a much higher ADP. I think it's come down a little bit.
Yeah.
And you have him ranked much lower than guys. So why are you a little lower on him?
I think he's a passing back only. And I just worry that he's, just going to have some struggles. Kind of reminds me, honestly, similar to a number of rookies we saw this year who just struggled to get on the field because they weren't complete backs.
Yeah.
And, maybe long term, he really carves out that passing game role and becomes a little better of a runner. But I just don't see it. I don't think he's got like the greatest, vision and contact. He's a good receiver. He can run routes and all that. But I struggle to see him translating quickly.
So
to the
195, you're not taking much of him at all. Okay.
Probably have very little of him.
Okay. Next couple, Jackson
Let me
from
just
Arkansas, Brashad James, or
Yeah, I'm going to just give one more sleeper because the rest of these guys, unless the landing
I was gonna
spot's
say if you want
perfect,
to. Okay, yeah.
I'm not going to go. But one guy who I will probably take a couple cracks at before this process, before we get to the combine and all that, and before the draft, and we'll see the landing spots, is Rashard Smith. 3-year college receiver, transferred to SMU, hit the ground running as a starting running back at like 1,400 total yards, still caught the ball well. So again, I brought this comp up a couple of times, but like Tyrone Tracy had a very similar college outlook. I think Smith, I'm surprised he's not considered better because he was so talented at SMU this year. I'll be interested to see his workout numbers. But he catches the ball well, he runs routes, and I think he actually could be a decent runner. Probably not like a true feature back, but at least he can be a number 2 running back and a good receiving back.
Okay. I like that. So basically these other guys, a lot of them are undrafted. Some of them go in the last couple of rounds, but the late round guys that you're targeting most, or a handful of, is the Brashard Smith, SMU, and Taj Brooks, Texas Tech,
and Damian Martinez.
Damian Martinez are your 3. And then you don't mind taking Harvey in the 200s. Would that be a summary of the late round sleepers? Because who was your favorite sleeper? It was Taj Brooks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, check out his full article, Steve's full article on fanspeak.com. To close the show, Steve, I want to try to guess your 5 highest rookie running back exposures at any price. Can I try to guess, basically?
Sure.
Okay. So based on what you said, obviously I'm going to have Genty in there. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 up top, but then, so I'm going to have both Genty and Hampton, because I think you really like that they're, potential first round or early second for Hampton. I think you're going to have a lot of both of them. I probably would throw Caleb Johnson in there, and I know Cam Scatterbo. So then I'm going to go either Devin Neal or Dylan Sampson. I could tell when you talked about them that for their price, you want a lot of them. So I'm going to go Dylan Sampson because of who kind of hit the Gibbs, the chain archetype comparison. Did I name those 5 right?
Yeah, the other 4 are right. I probably have more Neal than Sampson right now.
Okay, but you like Sampson a lot, but you probably have more Neal than Sampson.
Yeah.
Okay, because I forget Neal's the one going later, right?
No, Neal's actually going above Sampson's. Just
okay. Gotcha.
I think he's got a higher floor, and just in terms of certainty, I feel more confident he's at least a number 2 back somewhere.
Okay, so Genty, Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Cam Scatterbo, and then Neal, and then maybe Sampson is like a 6th honorable mention is who you'll have the most exposure to as rookie running backs. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, right. I would definitely have the Ohio State backs also. So.
Yeah. Then we're not knocking them. And again, check out his full breakdown on fanspeak.com. All free to check out. And hopefully this has been very helpful. It's been incredibly helpful to me because you helping guide me towards the right rookies helped you. It obviously helped you in your 4th place big board. And so this has been incredibly helpful, especially because this is such a powerful running back class. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Stay tuned. Next week, we will cover rookie receivers, and then we'll do this all again once after the draft under the landing spots. But thank you guys so much for joining us. For Steve, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.